Assalamu alaikum YouTube. This is Said Mirza. In today's video, I want to talk about the idea of shirk in the Quran. Now, shirk, which is variously translated as ascribing a partnership to God, setting up partners with God, and ideas along these lines, is a fundamental sin and a most heinous sin in the Quran. I just want to call your attention to chapter 6, verse 116, which states explicitly what the status of this sin is in front of God. God pardons not that a partnership be ascribed to him, but he pardons other than that whom he wills. And whoso ascribes a partnership to God, he has strayed far away. So the Quran is explicit that this sin, shirk, will not be forgiven by God. Now, if you talk to a traditional Muslim and you ask him the question, what shirk, what is shirk? He'll give you a cookie cutter boilerplate answer that shirk is associating anyone with God. But the problem is that he hasn't really thought through what that means. Now let's look at the first the first pillar of Islam, the testification of faith, which is also called the Shahada, which goes along the lines of there's no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. A valid question arises that why is the first pillar of Islam including the names of God and a man together? As Brother Gerrans has pointed out in his excellent work on the Quran, titled The Quran, A Complete Revelation, that this statement in totality does not exist in the Quran. The closest we have is there is no God but God. So the Quran does not include this statement precisely because there is no God but God, and that there is no other authority besides Him. There is no other entity to be called out besides Him. Now, on a superficial level, obviously, shirk means ascribing a partnership to God. But if we actually look at this statement a little bit more closely and try to ponder on what it means actually, we see that pretty much everyone around us is practicing shirk. Now, on a deeper level, shirk means that we are expecting some other entity to help us, or that we are afraid of another entity besides God, or that we think that whatever we are calling out to or whatever we are going to can guide us or heal us or benefit us or harm us. That is in actuality what the theology of the Quran is concerned with. It's not considered with the superficial level of understanding, it's considered with a deeper level of understanding. And so, in today's society, which is basically idolatry 2.0, what we're seeing is that people are still worshiping idols. But obviously, now it's not the stones that are being worshipped, accepting the stones which represent the goddess Lakshmi and Hanuman and the Kaaba, obviously. In a Western society, most people don't worship statues or saints. What they're worshiping is money, power. They're worshiping their lusts. They're worshiping their inner desires, as in they're following them. They are unable to control their appetites. They rely on the state, the government. They expect the government to fix things for them. They go to doctors for asking for m- seeking medical help instead of asking God for help. Um, just so you know, in the Quran, the story of Ibrahim, he says that it is that my Lord, uh, I will go to my Lord, He will guide me, and when I'm sick, He heals me, and when I'm hungry, He feeds me. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing the verse a little bit, but that's the gist of it. So we should be seeking our comfort in God, and that is what monotheism, what the creed of Ibrahim, who was a Hanif, is that we should not be relying on anyone besides God, even ourselves. You have this sort of sickness in today's society where people think that they can conquer all sorts of problems and they can basically provide for themselves with their own strength and with their own effort. Obviously everyone has to put in the effort, but we should not forget that it is God who is providing us our daily bread. And through the different means and mechanisms in the world, which in the Arabic is wasila, which is the means, he is providing us with all sorts of things, with comfort, with joy, with happiness, with sadness, with food, with shelter. But at the end of the day, ultimately the source is God. All is from God. And this is really what I think is missed by the Muslims, that they don't understand that the fundamentals of the Islam in the Quran, submission in the Quran, are about submission to God and His will, absolute submission to His will, and to be patient over what befalls us. Now, in the reading of the Quran, I saw something very interesting, and I have read that passage many times before, but I didn't really quite understand the implications of it until today. So, today I wanted to share with you a passage in the Quran, actually, two passages in the Quran that talk about the same topic about partnership to God, about shirk, and hopefully these will illuminate for you what this concept is about. And it's not just a superficial sort of thing where we just say there is no God but God, and then we continue on with our business of seeking help and from men, from governments, from doctors, from scientists, from lawyers, from teachers, from imams, from sheikhs, from muftis. No, this is a much more deeper change that's required in our condition, and that we should be relying absolutely on God. Okay, the first one is chapter 6, verse 136. Now, I'm going to read you the passage here, and then I'm going to go over something I found on Wikipedia that will explain to you what this passage is talking about. Okay, to start. And they make for God of what he sows of tilth and cattle a portion. They say, this is for God, according to their claim, and this is for our partners. And what is for their partners, it does not reach God, and what is for God, it reaches their partners. Evil is what they judge. And thus do their partners make fair to many among the idolaters the killing of their children, that they might bring them to ruin, and obfuscate their doctrine for them. And had God willed, they would not do it. So leave thou them and what they fabricate. Okay, now I want to go over something that I found on Wikipedia that is regarding this. The first one is called the prasada. It's a Hinduism practice, and basically what it entails is offering food and water to a deity. So this is from Britannica.com. I'll put in the links on the drop down box below. Prasada, Sanskrit, favor or grace in Hinduism, food and water offered to a deity during worship. It is believed that the deity partakes of and then returns the offering, thereby consecrating it. The offering is then distributed and eaten by the worshippers. Food left by a guru, spiritual leader, is considered prasada by the guru's followers, as the guru is regarded as a living god. All food, if silently offered to God with the proper prayers before eating, becomes consecrated and is thus considered prasada. Okay, so this is Hindus. Hindu custom is that basically they are offering the food to the deity, but obviously the deity can't eat it. And so if we look in the Quran in the chapter 6 verse 136, we see again, and they make for God of what he sows of tilth and cattle a portion. They said this is for God. Okay, so this is their claim, that this is for the deity according to their claim, and this is for our partners. And there's a separate portion for their partners, which is the guru, and obviously the person who's offering the sacrifice, he also gets a piece of it. And this is for our partners, and what is for their partners, it does not reach God, and what is for God, it reaches their partners. Evil is what they judge. Now let's look at the Jewish custom of offering food to their deity. And in the Jewish custom, it's called Qurban. And I'll put the drop down link below the link of this. In Judaism, the Qurban, also spelled Qurban or Korban, is any of a variety of sacrificial offerings described and commanded in the Torah. The plural form is Qurbanot. A Qurban was a kosher animal sacrifice such as bull, sheep, goat, or a dove that underwent shachita, Jewish ritual slaughter. Sacrifices could also consist of grain, meal, wine, or incense. Offerings were often cooked in and most of it eaten by the offerer. Okay? I want to repeat that. Offerings were often cooked and most of it eaten by the offerer, with parts given to the Kohen priests and small parts burned on the altar of the temple in Jerusalem. Only in special cases was all of the offering given only to God, such as in the case of the scapegoat. And that's where the word scapegoat comes from, by the way. So I'm going to stop here. So now I'm going to go ahead and read this again. Chapter 6, verse 142. I'm sorry. Chapter 6, verse 136. And they make for God of what he sows of tilt and cattle a portion. They say, this is for God, according to their claim, and this is for our partners. And what is for their partners, it does not reach God, and what is for God, it reaches their partners. Evil is what they judge. So the partners are these priests. They're the ones who are partaking in the sacrifice, okay? It's not some other separate entity. That's what the point of this passage is. Okay, to continue. And thus do their partners make fair to many among the idolaters the killing of their children, that they might bring them to ruin, and obfuscate their doctrine for them. And had God willed, they would not do it. So leave thou them and what they fabricate. Now, interestingly, the partners here obviously is referring to the old sacrifices that were done in the um, South American territories. That's the one instance that I know of where the Incas were sacrificing their children because they wouldn't get any rain or there was a drought going on, something like that. So the partners in that case were the priests. But interestingly, in the modern day, these partners are the doctors. Even the doctors make okay the killing of the children by abortion, by saying, "Oh, your son's gonna have," then this is happening. You can research this on your own, but they might say, "Okay, your son is having this, might end up with this disease, and it's a genetic disease, so you're better off just aborting." And this happens in China all the time too because of the one child policy. And I think that got relaxed now, but back in the day, the one child policy only mandated that they could have one child. And so what the couples used to do was they used to have testing done on the child, on the baby. Or if you don't want to use the word baby, fine, you use the word fetus. That helps with the kind of swallowing what's going on here. But basically they would say to they would do testing on the baby, and if the baby was a female they would abort, because obviously males are still prized in the Chinese culture, and obviously in the Pakistani culture and the Arab culture. So that's why they're having a big problem with a lot of males now in the society and not enough females. So just to show you here that the word partners is here is could mean many things, and not just another goddess. In this context specifically, it's talking about living breathing partners, as in priests or leaders or something of that sort. So that's the concept of partnership in the Quran. Now there's another passage here that I want to touch upon, and this one requires a little bit of more of an in-depth understanding of the words, so I'll try to go over it and then I'll flag certain things that are coming up so you can understand what's going on too. This is chapter 18, verse 32. And present thou to them an example. Two men, we made for one of them two gardens of grapes, and surrounded both with date palms, and placed between them a crop. Both gardens produced their fruit, and were wronged there nothing thereof. And we caused to flow in the midst of them a river. So there's two men, and one of them is been blessed by God, and he has gardens and grapes and date palms and crops. So obviously he thinks he's special. Mm. So he says, to continue, and one had fruit, and said to his companion when he talked with him, I am greater than thee in wealth, and am mightier in men. So that's what he was boasting here, saying, I'm better than you. I have wealth and I have men, as in, probably progeny. Now, what's interesting is here that the word is فَقَالَ لِصَاحِبِهِ وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ. Okay? So when he said to his companion when he was talking to him, okay? Now this scene is still going on. They're still talking, but now there's a shift in the perspective. Because now what happens is that he enters his garden, okay? But they're still talking, okay? So I can assume what's happening is that they're both walking and they enter the garden, his garden. To continue, and he entered his garden while he was wronging his soul, saying, I think not that this will ever perish, and I think not that the hour will take place. And if I am brought back to my Lord, I will find better than this as a place of return. Now I'll stop here. So the first argument he was making was that I am greater than you in wealth and am mightier in men. The second argument is that he says he believes that this will not perish. And even if it does perish, then what he will get with his Lord will be better. So because he thinks he's special, he's chosen or something. Okay. Now this is an interesting way that the Quran works sometimes is that because of the reasons of trying to make things compact, it sometimes saves space by shifting to the second argument and then going and answering the first argument. And I'll show you how this happens in the beginning of the surah as well. But anyway, to continue. So the two arguments he's making is that, I'm greater than thee in wealth and I'm mightier in men. And the second argument is, I think not that this will ever perish, and I think not that the hour will take place. And if I am brought back to my Lord, I will find better than this as a place of return. So his companion addresses his second argument first, okay? The latter argument first. He says, to continue. His companion said while conversing with him, Deniest thou him who created thee from dust, then from a drop of fluid, then fashioned thee a man? But as for me, he is Lord. He is God, my Lord, and I ascribe not a partnership with my Lord to anyone. Okay, so this is what his partner is saying. His companion is saying that you are denying God who created you from nothing, basically. But for me, I take my Lord as my God, and I ascribe not a partnership with my Lord to anyone. But if you look at the arguments before, this guy, this guy who thinks he's so special, he never said that there's anyone with God. He never said that there is any partnership with God. But what he did say was, I am greater than you in wealth and mightier in men. Basically, that I have the resources. So what he's doing is he's saying that I have my resources to rely upon. You have nothing. So this is the point where he's committing shirk. Now moving forward, we have in verse 39. And oh, that when thou wast entering the garden, thou hadst but said, That which God has willed, there is no strength save in God. If thou see me less than thee in wealth and children, it may be that my Lord will give me better than thy garden, and will send upon thine a calamity from the sky, so that it becomes miry ground, or its water becomes sunken, so that thou canst not find it. And encompassed were his fruits, and he began to wring his hands for all that he had spent therein, but it was desolate. And he said, Would that I had not ascribed a partnership with my Lord to anyone. And he had no band to help him besides God, and he could not help himself. Thereupon protection belongs to God, the truth. He is best in reward and best in final outcome. Now, see, this is what I'm saying here, that the partnership to God was him relying upon his resources, thinking that because he has wealth and he has men, he is, he's safe. And in down the line, his companion says that you, I do not ascribe a partnership to anyone besides God. And also, if you see me less in wealth and children, basically that you think that these can help you, it may be that my Lord will give me better than than your garden. It may be because God is the one who, there is no strength save in God. Now going forward, the person, the evildoer, the one who committed shirk, he says, would that I had not ascribed a partnership with my Lord to anyone. So he regrets that he committed shirk. He understands what happened. He understood that because he became so boastful, boasting, and he thought this was all because of him, because he spent all this money and to develop these fields, and everything was desolate now. So he understood that he had ascribed a partnership to God, because God can make anything happen. Doesn't make any difference how much money you save up in your bank account, or what health insurance you have, or how educated you are and how professional you are, and all this nonsense that day in and day out we're bombarded with. That if you're successful in this worldly life, you're successful, then no harm can touch you. Uh, this passage here just obliterates that whole viewpoint, because it doesn't matter what you have. Everything can be taken away, and you can be reduced to nothing, because again, there is no strength save in God. Okay? Now, just to finish this up, he says at the end, uh, would that I had not ascribed a partnership with my Lord to anyone. And God says, and he had no band to help him besides God, and he could not help himself. So again, see, it was not on his, based on his efforts. He couldn't even help himself. Thereupon protection belongs to God, the truth. He is best in reward and best in final outcome. So that should give you some food for thought. Um, that just because we are not ascribing a partnership to God, as in we're not calling out to anyone besides God, and doesn't mean that that's the end of the story. This topic is a little bit more. It requires a deeper level of understanding. So that's pretty much it. I do hope that this gives you something to think about. Um, as for me, whenever I read the Quran and I read these verses, then for me, I understand that the only helper, our only ally is God, and He's the one who guides and He's the one who misguides. And it's ultimately up to Him. So all we can do is try to follow His commandments and be humble and remember Him and keep asking for His forgiveness, and always hope for His providence, for His bounty, for His mercy, because that's all we can do. And no mullah, no priest, no imam, no doctor, no scientist can help us. We cannot even help ourselves. It is only God who can help us, and we should be relying on Him exclusively. And that's it for now. Inshallah, until the next time, peace be upon you.